you're good as gone.
Good evening, my friends. This is Paul, and tonight I'm going to be reviewing The World Ends With You Final Remix for the Nintendo Switch. Oh my goodness, I cannot believe this day has finally come. The day that I get to show off one of my favorite DS games, not to mention one of my favorite games currently made on the big screen. Like, this is pretty much unreal for me. So, you all know that I'm a humongous fan of the original World Ends With You on the DS. So, no matter what Square Enix had to say, I was just like dead set on getting this the moment that I heard the announcement. And for the most part, it didn't disappoint. This is a pretty spectacular port of the main DS experience, keeping in everything that worked, as well as adding a few refinements here and there. Now, before you watch this video, I would highly recommend that you watch my original review of The World Ends With You. Yes, I don't have footage for it, but my opinions are pretty much the same, and a lot of what I said in that video still applies to this, and that'll save me some talking time. So with that, this is basically a hybrid of the mobile and DS versions. So it has all the story content that was first introduced on the DS, plus it has the solo remix version of the battle system that was introduced on the iPhone. Basically, instead of having Neku's partner on the top screen and Neku on the bottom screen, you now have both characters on one screen. Your partner has only a certain amount of energy that they can be on the screen at a time, and after that you have to play as Neku until they recharge. And also, if Neku and his partner alternate attacks, it fills up their sync meter, which originally kind of just seemed like it was random on the DS. But now it actually feels like you are actually syncing up with another person, which is what the narrative tries to tell you, and that's trust your partner. Then, each individual partner has their own way of doing a fusion attack. Instead of just triggering a cinematic like you did in the DS version, you now play a little mini game. In the case of Neku's first partner, Shiki, you end up trying to switch the symbols that appear on the first card, and all the other cards are turned face down, and you have to find a match. And the more matches you get, the higher your attack is on all the enemies, and you also get a better chance of having good pins drop. Your pins are basically the source of all of your attacks, if you haven't watched my original review. And the game does a great job of adding a lot of variety to how you're going to play it. You might be slashing, shooting bullets, sending fire all over the place. And it makes Neku an incredible candidate for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, especially because there is literally a stage, no joke, like a stage that has the Super Smash Bros. Logo in the background. Yeah, I know, it's amazing. With that said, there is one major problem with Final Remix that makes it very hard for me to recommend it, and that's the controls. As you can see, they're pretty darn awful. When you're playing it just on handheld mode, it's fine. It's definitely nowhere near as good as using a stylus on the DS touchscreen in my opinion, but it's definitely not ideal either. It feels like the game's always fighting against what I want it to do. Like, maybe I want Neku's partner to do something, but yet something happens where the game screws up my input, or I want Neku to move, but the game doesn't register that I want him to move. And these occasionally happen in the DS version, but they happen all the time on the Switch. And if you think it was bad then, you should see it when I went on the TV. When I first played this game on the TV, I felt like I was an absolute joke at video games. And mind you, I'm no slouch at the original World Ends With You. But yet, the way they have you do it in this remix is that you play it like you're playing an early Wii game, where you hold the Joy-Con like a Wii remote, and you even sync it up Wii Motion Plus style because the Switch doesn't have a sensor bar. And you use the pointer for literally everything except moving around, which, believe it or not, you can actually use the joystick when you're moving around outside of battle. But then when you're in battle, you point at where you want Neku to go and hold the B button. But when you want Neku to do a regular attack, you hold down the A button, and then use the appropriate movement from the Joy-Con. So if Neku has a slashing pin, you'll want to slash while pressing the A button to make him slash, then press the A button again to remove the slash. And so it basically creates button mashing when, why couldn't there have been an option to say hold down the A button and slash instead of having to keep pressing it? I know that's more faithful to how you had to keep lifting up the stylus from the screen in the original DS version, but this is a remix. You're supposed to fix this stuff. Not only that, but a lot of times, because the controls were so finicky, it ended up making some of the earliest battles in the game drag on far longer than they should have. This game would have been really optimal had it been on the 3DS, but seeing as the Switch was the big cheese in the market at the time of this recording, they probably would have thought, oh, well, we're not going to make as much money. And they are Square Enix, so of course they're going to want to milk their franchise on the latest and greatest system. Even though the 3DS literally looks just like a DS, and probably could have had some cool 3D effects too, but alas. One of the biggest selling points to a new remix is also that it has a brand new epilogue. It's called A New Day. Now, before I get into the positive, I actually want to start with the negative for a change. And I have two issues with the way A New Day is presented. So first off, one of the first problems is that you get it not by beating the game, but by finding 3 Purple Reapers within the normal game and completing their challenges. Now, there are walkthroughs if you want to look them up on your own and you don't want me to spoil them, but if you don't complete all 3 of those challenges, then you'll just get a giant question mark on your chapter select screen after you beat the game. In addition to that, you also have to beat the game to get A New Day because it assumes that you've beaten the main campaign. However, these challenges are really tough, and so you really have to have mastered those controls. And at that point, I would highly recommend that you play the game in handheld mode, because boy, those enemies aren't going to show you any mercy, especially if you're swinging around the Joy-Con like you don't know what you're doing. The other problem is that it's basically a giant cliffhanger for an inevitable sequel. And I'm not a huge fan of that kind of game design. It's the same problem I had with Detective Pikachu, where it sets up more questions than it gives answers. And it really stinks that Square couldn't have just said, this is a teaser, like they did with Kingdom Hearts 2.0 Final Chapter Prologue, whatever it's called. That would have been the optimal way to do this, seeing as it's made by the same publisher, but alas, we had to settle for this instead. Nevertheless, the new character introduced is pretty funny, and the dialogue still manages to be just as engaging and thought-provoking as it was in the original game. So, this is a masterpiece of a game, if I haven't said that enough. I would highly recommend it if it weren't for the controls. Granted, if you can play it on the DS, the only thing you're really missing is a giant cliffhanger and a bunch of really hard challenges. So if you can get it on the DS, cool, but it's currently not on the Virtual Console, and the DS version is also pretty hard to find. Nevertheless, if you can't get The World Ends With You on any other platform, the Switch at the moment is bearable, meaning that unless they make some kind of update, you're definitely not going to want to play this on the TV. While you can eventually get used to it, I still don't think that's optimal. I think a game should come with improvements right away. For a game that played so magnificently on its original system, it should play better when it's put on another system. It shouldn't have to suffer the problem that Hyrule Warriors Legends did, where it faced the inferior hardware issue. This is the Switch. It's leagues more powerful than the DS. It should have been able to fix the controls just as easily. With that said, I cannot praise this game enough for literally everything else it does. Everything in the game just oozes with style, the music is amazing, all of the original tracks are still here, as well as some new songs, and all of the songs that you love are now remixed, some of them being remixed more than just once. There are some songs that actually have up to 4 remixes, and so you're really getting your music's worth for basically double the soundtrack of the original game. And yes, it does have an in-game soundtrack, you just have to unlock said songs that you want to listen to, so better than nothing. With that said, thank you guys very much for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments section. And until the next time, keep the faith, stay epic, God bless, and trust your partner. Bye!